Тому ми повинні знайти законний, безпечний і реалістичний механізм, який дозволить Україні приймати критично важливі рішення. У такій ситуації країна не може залишатися.
A political bombshell is exploding inside Ukraine's wartime leadership. Sacked Defense Minister Mykhailo Fedorov is now calling for presidential elections, while the war with Russia is still raging, directly challenging the political status quo under President Volodymyr Zelensky. Fedorov says Putin must not be allowed to decide when Ukrainians can choose their government, as protesters continue demanding Fedorov's return in Kyiv. His election call is turning a month-long political dispute into a much bigger fight over Ukraine's democratic future.
Elections are not just ballots. This is the moment when the government comes back to the citizen and says, "Here, we have done this. Now you decide whether you continue to trust us." And it is this very principle that distinguishes a democratic state from a system where the government itself decides when society can evaluate it. We must not let Putin decide when Ukrainians can choose their government. Ukrainian democracy must not depend on the goodwill of the Kremlin.
Fedorov says Ukraine needs a legal, safe, and realistic mechanism to restore its full democratic process despite a prolonged war. That means solving the enormous challenge of voting for soldiers at the front, Ukrainians living abroad, and people in frontline regions. But Ukraine is still under martial law, under which elections are currently prohibited, turning Fedorov's call into a major political and legal challenge. And the pressure is not coming from Fedorov alone. Protesters gathered again in Kyiv, demanding answers over his dismissal and calling for greater transparency from the government. Demonstrators chanted, "Corruption kills," and carried a striking message: "We raise our voices for those who cannot vote." Supporters say they still have not been given a clear explanation for why Fedorov was removed.
We continue to gather because we still haven't received an answer as to why we still don't have Fedorov. We don't understand what the dismissal was for, because from the very beginning, the president's position was that there had been a conflict with someone who was involved and who is no longer there. Accordingly, there is no reason. There is no understanding of why Fedorov was dismissed.
We are also calling for clear communication, because the reasons for these latest decisions, which have caused conflicts and protests, were not properly explained. And we are learning about certain reasons, about certain developments concerning the defense minister, concerning Mr. Fedorov, about the fact that he is being offered new positions and so on from foreign news reports. It shouldn't be like that.
Fedorov is accusing the government of something even deeper, a systemic crisis of governance. He says corruption and bureaucratic failures during wartime can directly cost Ukraine weapons, drones, ammunition, and electronic warfare systems. His warning is blunt. Money meant for defense must work for defense, not private pockets, political influence, or protecting positions inside the system.
People cannot live indefinitely in a state where they do not understand why certain decisions are made, why some reforms move forward while others are blocked. Why do decisions that are needed on the front lines today circulate through offices for months? And it is especially dangerous when society gets the feeling that the main criterion for appointing a person is not their professionalism, not results, and not the ability to change the country, but their personal loyalty to the system. A modern state cannot work this way. And even more so, a country fighting a war for its survival cannot work this way. We must also talk about corruption, not because it is a popular word, but because during a war, corruption takes on a completely different meaning.
The timing makes this confrontation even more explosive. Fedorov was abruptly dismissed as defense minister in July after just 6 months in the job, triggering protests in Kyiv and other Ukrainian cities. Now, as those demonstrations continue and Zelensky moves to install acting defense minister Yevhen Kamara as Fedorov's successor, the former minister is escalating the fight from his dismissal to Ukraine's entire political system. Fedorov has not said he intends to run for president, but his intervention has opened a major new battle over Ukraine's political future, putting Zelensky's leadership, government accountability, and democratic legitimacy under renewed scrutiny. With the war still raging and elections legally blocked under martial law, Kyiv now faces a difficult question. How long can Ukraine fight a war without giving voters a chance to judge those in power?